Hi everyone, welcome to the FI rSeries learning. This is chapter 6 and in this chapter we will create the tenant 1 on rSeries host 1 and tenant 2 on rSeries host 2. Alright, let us get started. This video is continuation of chapter 5. If you haven't watched chapter 5, please check it out chapter 5 before continuing here. Let us jump into fihost1.lab.ae and create prod lb1 tenant. This is how the tenant 1 will be created on host 1. Log into the rSeries host, then navigate to the tenant images section and confirm the tenant image is available. Yes, the previously imported Big IP tenant image, which is 17.1.2.2 is available. Alright, we are good to deploy the tenant. To deploy the tenant, go to the tenant deployment and click Add to create the new tenant. Here, type tenant name as prod lb1. Tenant type as Big IP because we are going to create Big IP tenant. Choose to locate the previously imported tenant image. The tenant management IP address is 10.10.5.21. Subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. We configured subnet mask as prefix length, which is /24, and configure the management default gateway as 10.10.5.1. Select VLAN 230 and VLAN 231 for data traffic. Also select VLAN 4001 for HA traffic. Choose large as MAC block size. This provides 32 MAC addresses, which offers more flexibility for scaling virtual servers in special deployments. Select deployment option as recommended. This option will let you to choose the number of vCPUs, and then the system will automatically assign the memory based on the vCPU selection. Important point to note here. If you go with advanced mode, where you can configure the flexible vCPU and memory based on the tenant requirements. If you configure this tenant for production environment, I highly recommend to go with advanced mode because sometimes you need to adjust the memory based on the tenant's modules configuration. You will not have this flexibility if you go with the recommended option. For this lab, we select the deployment option as recommended with 4 vCPU. And then the system allocate the required memory based on the vCPU selection. The virtual disk size requirement is based on the tenant image type that has been imported earlier. As discussed in chapter 3, there are 4 types of Big IP tenant images available for rSeries. Each image type has different system resource requirements and supports different sets of modules. We have imported the larger tenant image and that supports all the Big IP modules. The larger tenant image requires the minimum disk size of 142 GB. To ensure smooth operation, we are assigning 160 GB for this tenant. Let us keep the tenant status configured. This means the tenant settings are saved in the FIOS configuration. However, there are no system resources like CPU, memory, storage are allocated yet. Always enable the crypto acceleration module. This is to offload SSL TLS tasks to the rSeries hardware accelerator. Keep the appliance mode in disabled state because this tenant is not for a specific isolated task. Once you're done with all the settings, click Save and Close. Once you've done this, tenant will be in configured state. Click Edit the tenant to change the deployment state from configured to provisioned. Then click Save and Close. The confirmation prompt will appear as, are you sure you want to update the tenant configuration? Click OK to that. Now you will see the tenant status changed from configured to provisioning. Provisioning is in progress. During this provisioning phase, the system allocates resources like vCPU, memory, and the virtual disk. This process typically takes 1 to 2 minutes. Please wait the process to complete. Provisioned successfully. Yes. The system has successfully provisioned the required resources. Again, click Edit the tenant to change the deployment state from provisioned to deployed. And then click Save and Close. The confirmation prompt will appear as, are you sure you want to update the tenant configuration? Click OK to that. The system will now start the tenant using the provisioned resources. Wait for few minutes as the system transitions the tenant status from provisioned to deployed and begins the boot process. Awesome! The status changed from provisioned to deployed. Tenant is starting. It may take few more minutes to fully boot. While the tenant is booting, open a command prompt and start pinging the tenant management IP address, which is 10.10.5.21. Once you see the replies, it means the tenant is up and it is reachable through network. The tenant status is deployed and started. Also, the tenant management IP is pingable. Open a new tab in your browser and type the management IP and then click enter. Amazing! The tenant graphical user interface is accessible now. You can see the tenant login page. This confirms the Tenant01 has been successfully deployed on rSeries Host01. Now what? we have to create the tenant 2 on rSeries host 2. We required tenant 2 because we are going to setting up the high availability between the tenant 1 and tenant 2. This is how the tenant 2 will be created on rSeries host 2. We have followed the same steps to create tenant 2 on rSeries host 2. Like tenant 1, we have successfully created the tenant 2 and it is up and running. Also, we are able to access the tenant 2 using browser graphical user interface. This is tenant 2 login screen. Amazing. We have successfully deployed the tenant 1 on host 1 and the tenant 2 on host 2. Please continue watching my next video, which is tenant basic setup in rSeries. Thank you.